Okay. Okay, I wanted to do a little video. I haven't put it on here yet. On the New Heritage Ministries YouTube channel. It's under Zeitgeist. So what is New Heritage Ministries? I probably should turn off the motor of the car here. New Heritage Ministries is actually started with comic book thing my dad had. My dad, Philip Missick, he was a chaplain in Vietnam. During the Vietnam War in the Army. And he had kind of a feeling the Holy Spirit experience in Vietnam. And since then, even though Dad wasn't perfect and I was kind of his problem child, black sheep, there's been occasions in his life, our life, that it was very clear that God was working in his life. My relationship with him tended to be more of like, he was more like a Pharisee to me, and I was, if you see the movie Footloose, where you got the daughter who's trying to come into her own, and she meets this guy who's like dancing and is like everything that the town is against, and her father is against dancing and everything, and my dad was like that. And I ended up being more like the guy that Kevin Bacon played, as I kind of like strayed away from the family and kind of came into my own, kind of made my own life and my own mistakes, and built my own relationship with God separate from Dad and the family. So New Heritage Ministries was established in 1972 originally, and Dad had made a comic book, Captain Christian, and in the comic book, Captain Christian was in charge of an organization called the Royal Christian Crusaders. So Dad wanted to make that into a real organization, and he did, and it was the Royal Christian Constabulary. Which Crusaders and Constabulary they both work for a king, right? They're like, Crusaders are knights that work for a king who is appointed by God, and as the concept is, through Christ we are kings and priests according to the Bible, and thus making us royalty. And it's a Christian organization to help people and develop churches. And we do this quick when we go inside, all right? You done with your fries? You want to go on your swing? No, okay. Okay, so Dad made it a real organization, started recruiting more people into it, which some of them were the guys that he met in Vietnam that went to church, and he was their pastor. And they changed the name from Royal Christian Constabulary to New Heritage Ministries of the Royal Christian Constabulary. That organization Dad used to establish churches, to take donations for helping the homeless, and he did in fact help homeless people, and establish churches. He tried to set up a homeless shelter in Texas at one time, and it was okay. It was not 100% planned. He just kind of like jumped into it and started doing it, and police would just drop homeless people at our doorstep, and Mom ended up in charge of it, and it put a strain on their relationship, and it ended up being the biggest factor for their divorce, which this happened right around the time I joined the military. So over 50 years, Dad established a couple of different churches, and the latest one he established was King of Saints Tabernacle. And after he died, my brother ended up taking over as a pastor, and I found the documents for New Heritage Ministries, which I've been asking Dad for years, let me be a part of this. And he's like, okay, when I find the paperwork, we can do that, yeah. Which he never got around to. And we discussed about having a Bible study in Germany, where I have ended up working. And so he kind of commissioned me to do that, and I have had Bible studies and missionaries to my house in Germany, and I do a little bit to support missionaries in Germany with feeding them and giving them things they need. And it's really out of my own pocket, I haven't really done much. I've attempted some fundraisers, and the fundraisers that I did do, the money went to the church, and there wasn't really much money, really. It was mostly just people paying their tithe. One time, my brother got everything stolen. The church was broken into and vandalized, and his army gear, he was a chaplain, and his army uniforms were stolen. So I did a little fundraiser, and he did a fundraiser, and I made a little money with that. A couple hundred people donated, and I sent that directly to my brother. So anyway, current status of New Age Heritage Ministries. So I was trying to help my brother support the church, develop the ministry, do some outreach, some homeless helping things, and get government funding. In the process, working with my brother and donors and government programs, they look at your social media, and you cannot get certain funding if you are proselytizing or if you are having a political interest, or a political organization. And then my brother started running for political office, and I've been communicating long distance. I was like talking with him every day, sometimes every day, sometimes every week, sometimes every month. It's just depending on if I could get a hold of him or what's going on. And during this time, I was also pursuing legal action against the hospital for my father's death, because they violated his human rights, because he didn't want to be treated by them. He wanted to go home because he just didn't agree. They wanted to kill him. They wanted to give him to do the whole hospice thing and put him to death with my stepmother. And he's like, no, we don't believe in that. We're not doing that. But they wouldn't let him go because the COVID restrictions allowed hospitals to violate human rights. And they locked him, they restrained him, they locked him in his bed, they declared him incompetent. They wouldn't let him out. And the family, we wanted him to get better, so we didn't want him to get out either. And I kind of had a little issue with him, like, what should I do? I was going to go to the hospital. In fact, I went to the hospital, middle of the night. I was going to just take him out. Like, break in, take him out of there, like, sneak him out. But my stepmother was there also. And I didn't want to get in legal trouble, while I was, working in Europe and a citizen in the U.S. And if I caused myself legal trouble, then I may not be able to go back to work in Europe. And that's what I'm doing to support my family. So it would have caused big issues for me if I did something to get in trouble in the United States at that time. So I didn't, and Dad ultimately died in the hospital care. Well, we took him out at the last minute, but it was too late. He was already dying. So we weren't able to save him. The hospital neglected his care and my stepmother's, and it's just a bad scene. And I was trying to sue them, and my time ran out, and lawyers wanted hundreds of thousands of dollars, which I wasn't able to raise without like mortgaging my house. And one lawyer told me, like, if you're not independently wealthy, don't even bother with this. And with all the protection that the government gave and money that they gave to hospitals during that time, there's very little you can really do to sue them for malpractice, or violating my father's human rights. Maybe in the next years, we can come up with something that we can in fact sue the hospital for violating my father's rights and for contributing to his death. But it's difficult, to find that. But anyway, through legal battle and then trying to deal with settling the estate, a lot of things happened, and my brother, I'm just going to put it as we had a falling out, and I realized I can't work with him. So now New Heritage Ministries is my family's responsibility. And I'm working on doing a branch in the in Europe, so people in Europe can donate to New Heritage Ministries, and I can go back to what Dad was doing and helping homeless people and helping feed and clothe and all of that. But I had a little project I wanted to do was doing kind of a Toys for Tots in Europe, because it doesn't exist. But it won't be Toys for Tots. It's obviously copyrighted and all that. But it will be a similar concept, you know, taking toy donations and giving disadvantaged children or families Christmas stuff. So that is what I'm currently working on. But I'm also still helping missionaries and feeding them and giving them extra stuff that they need here in Europe. But to continue carry this on, I'm going to have to work with a church in Europe and establish another New Heritage Ministries branch in Europe, another legal entity. So I guess it was a lot of things happened to show me it was God's plan that I was no longer to work with my brother with that church, because something happened when I had to go back there that, well, I had a relative who died, and that was the last time I could have seen them. And if my brother hadn't caused an issue at that time, then I would not have had to go home and deal with the legal aspects of New Heritage Ministries and remove him from it. And I had the last opportunity at that time to see my aunt before she died. So I believe that was of God causing that to happen, showing us that there's something going on with my brother and I can't work with him. So, I mean, that is in God's hands. I would like to say, I mean, there's a lot to be said about that, but I don't really want to put it out there for the world. And some things I have put out there for my friends and relatives to know, like my side of the story with what happened with my brother. But at the end result is I'm not working with him anymore. I'm continuing pretty much starting from zero with New Heritage Ministries in Europe. But it still exists, the entity still exists in the United States that I am managing. And if people want to help an organization like a nonprofit organization in Europe, the way that people do that, because you can't donate to like a European nonprofit organization because you won't get your tax deduction. You can, but you won't get a tax break. But if you donate to a nonprofit organization that works overseas, then you can get your tax donation and they can use the money for whatever overseas interests you have, like helping refugees, which is part of the plan, or helping. You ready to get out? Okay. So anyway, that's kind of where we're at right now, and I just wanted to we're getting out right now. Just wanted to update everyone on what's going on with New Heritage Ministries at this time. Further updates will, of course, develop, and I'll update people here on our website and YouTube channel. I think he doesn't want to stop.